Welcome to the Matt Kuda Photography Podcast, a podcast about nature and wildlife photography in your own backyard and throughout the United States. Okay, welcome to another episode of Behind the Shot. As usual, click in the show notes on the follow along image, and it will take you to my Flickr page where you can follow along. Okay, this is a shot of a great blue heron. And what I really like about this shot is it shows a very typical American wading bird in a fairly different kind of situation, a fairly different environment, a different background, if you will. It just has a feel-good feeling to me. And that's why I picked it for the Behind the Shot this week. If you look at this photograph, it has a few things going for it. You know, first and foremost, you have a very large, beautiful bird. He's pretty much in the right third of the image, if you will. So he's not centered. I'm using the rule of thirds. Do you have to use the rule of thirds in your photographs? Absolutely not. Is it a good place to start? Yes. I'm almost always, on any shoot, go ahead and photograph the subject centered, vertical, and using the rule of thirds horizontally. It's just natural. It's the way that I have been photographing for 20 years. So that's the first thing I like. The second thing I like about this photograph is the background. The background is of the Gulf of Mexico. This was photographed at Fort DeSoto in western Florida. And so we have that beautiful, blue in the background on the water, and then the sky is also blue. We can see breakers in the background back there, showing how shallow the water is. We can see a small breaker in front of the subject in the foreground, which helps lead our eye, to the right and toward the subject. And my eye kind of bounces back and forth between the subject and along the water and then back up into the sky again. So it's got all that going for it. The other significant thing that this image has going for it is the subject is showing us gesture, okay? And gesture is simply an action. It's something that the animal or human is doing in the photograph that just makes it better, frankly. It makes it more alive. It makes it more interesting. And that's what we're seeing here with this great blue heron. I think it's a particularly good species of great blue heron. It also is right at probably the end of breeding season, or mid-breeding season. And you can see that because he has a trailing feathers coming off the back of his head, and that's what they have during breeding season. You'll also see a heavier plumage down their neck. It's just a good shot. It's an interesting shot. Now, shot aside, the whole situation was interesting because the bird, I saw him at about, I'd say about 40 yards out or 50 yards out, and I could see him in the distance, and he was walking toward me. And if you know anything about bird photography, it's best to let the bird come to you rather than you go toward the bird. And so I just dropped down onto my belly, and I laid there in the sand, and I just waited. And sure enough, he just came walking right down, right toward me. I fired shot after shot, and this was the one that I liked the most. This was actually taken with my older 1D Mark II, which is I do not own anymore. It was very close, as you can see, f8, 191 millimeters, 1/1250th of a second at ISO 200. I mean, it's exactly what you would want in exposure, shutter speed, depth of field, all of that. It's all of that in one nice, neat little package. Is it a big showstopper image? Is it a a contest winning image, probably not, but certainly good enough for your wall. I could see this as a good decoration in a beach house. Certainly publishable. I mean, you could definitely sell this image. So that's pretty much it. I mean, that's pretty much it for this image. It's something anybody can get, and that's what I love about it. Now, one final note on this before we go. This image was not possible where I live. Where I live here in North Carolina, to photograph a great blue heron this close with this kind of scenery, it's just not possible. And so that's another reason I really, really like the shot. So there's a lot of reasons behind it. As a shot, it stands on its own, but the story behind it, I think, is just as interesting. Anyway, that's all I had. Thanks for listening. Make it a great day, and get out there and enjoy nature. Bye-bye.
Music for this episode was provided by Dr. Turtle.